Hello, everyone. Welcome to the One People Show for this week. I'm Lisa Harrison, and we have, as always, Brian Kelly.
I love that song.
I know. Everyone had their dance off for the, get it all out of their system.
I freaking love it. So, yeah, happy to be here.
And, of course, we have Bob Wright.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Lisa, Chris, Brian, everyone in the chat room. Glad to be here.
And we have Chris Hales.
Hello, everybody.
We've got a bit
Brian.
of echo on somebody's line, though, guys.
Brian, Bob, Lisa, everyone out there in the chat rooms, etc. Great to be here. And yes, that song is a toe tapper, for sure.
Yes, it is. A toe tapper.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A quaint term, but it works.
I just got an image of Chris in my mind tap dancing. It was really funny.
Ooh, okay.
Well, again, I want to say hello and welcome to everybody in the chat room, everybody listening, everybody who's called in, and everybody who will listen. It's been a big week, as we all know. Lots of controversy, lots of confusion, lots of attention around the whole Kiri Campbell situation. And we're going to do our best to clear some of that up. And for those of you who haven't seen it, I think we're going to go straight in. Are you ready, Brian?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, Brian put up a really good blog post today, a few hours ago, and I've asked him to read it out because I feel that he addresses virtually all of the issues that have come up around this and the confusion. So take it away, Brian.
Well, this was it was actually a comment that I posted on Facebook. Someone had sent me a message saying that there was a lot of talk going back and forth in some of the Facebook rooms about the Kiri Campbell trial and accusations being made that Kiri was misrepresenting the integrity of the One People's Public Trust, and that we on this panel, as well as Heather, have gotten really caught up into the whole thing and are banking on it as kind of our success story that we need to have happen in order for things to work. And so this was my comment. I felt that it needed to be addressed because it was starting to get a little bit out of control. So I'm just going to read it as I wrote it, and we'll just have a discussion after. I said, great discussion here, friends. Let me start out by saying I understand, appreciate, and respect all the thoughts and concerns mentioned on this thread. I always find it interesting how speculation and assumption can spin an unfolding story into an Academy Award-winning caliber melodrama. There's a lot of hype wrapped around this, and for very good reason. I get it. Let me start off by saying Beck was fairly accurate above when she made this comment, and in quotes, she was using other Freeman docs and techniques already when she stumbled across OPPT, and then she mentioned the UCC filings, then she incorporated the UCC filings into her actions in progress, end quote. Kiri mentioned this in our interview we published. She was very far along with her own process, having done a considerable amount of her own study with Mary Croft's work and uncovering for herself the reality of the people being the true creditors, not the banks. So when she stumbled upon OPPT, the UCC filings gave her the last piece of the puzzle she needed, $5 billion secured for every embodiment on the planet to underwrite her personal value within. So when Anonymous and many others ask the very logical question, why did she not just wait for the DOV documents and do this process with a much stronger foothold to support her efforts? The honest answer is I don't think she even knew about the documents being created at that point. She was already off to the races. As far as she was concerned, she had everything she needed once she read the UCC filings. Lisa, Heather, Bob, Chris, myself, and the rest of the crew didn't find out about what she had done until 48 hours after she left the bank and had been arrested for the first time. And I added later, it turns out she may have known about the documents, but she ultimately decided she wanted to use her own process. We stood behind her because we knew she was a warrior with a good heart, a beautiful family who love and adore her, and she deserved to have our support. Here's where the message has become a bit distorted. We never viewed this as an OPPT victory. It is now and has always been a piece of the puzzle, data to assist in developing the bigger picture at hand. This whole process with the DOV and what Heather is doing in Morocco is a global jigsaw puzzle with more working pieces than I think anyone could ever possibly comprehend. It's like a complex 5-course meal with one of the most important variables being the timing of the dishes. One wrong move and the dessert comes out before the main course and the whole meal is ruined. From what I know and have heard in bits and pieces from Heather, Kiri's case has provided much more data for what she is working on with the DOV. What exactly that data is, I'm not exactly sure, and she can't talk about it over the phone. I know Heather personally, and I trust her and her processes 100%. If she says Kiri's case is important to her work, and it's given her the last bit of info that she needs to make this happen, I trust she knows exactly what she's doing, which includes the timing of the release. And I added, when I spoke to Dee today, she described it as more of an order of operations situation with certain things needing to happen in order first in order for everything to go as planned. Where this whole story became a bit messy is when Anonymous started to muddy the story with her accusations of Kiri having an agenda to claim sovereignty for the Maori people of New Zealand. She very well may be, but from my vantage point, it's focusing on all the wrong details. Kiri is standing up against the court system and defending her rights against those in power trying to strip them away. She does not consent to abuse, and victory in court should be the focus here, not who wrote the announcement for the march through Wellington or what she hopes to gain by way of freedom for her people. I hope with all my heart Kiri walks out of that courtroom tomorrow victorious. I believe she will. No matter what the outcome, Kiri will always be a hero in my book for standing up for what she believes in, for defending her rights against her oppressors. This is how true change is born. When enough people stand up for what they know is right, the people claim their power back. People should not fear their governments. Governments should fear their people. As long as we are in fear, we will always be ruled by the unjust. Kiri did what she did by her own free will. Had she contacted any of us ahead of time, we surely would have informed her of what Heather is doing with the DOV documents and likely would have suggested she wait. But hindsight being 2020, that's not what happened because, in all caps, that's not what was meant to happen. We all know everything happens for a reason. What's done is done. We can sit here and collectively wish it didn't go down that way until we're all blue in the face and it won't rewind Kiri's actions. What we all need to do now is support her. We also need to stop talking about OPPT as a movement that can be compromised by an individual or a group. When you give it the label of a movement, then you give people power to compromise the integrity of the movement or be operating within or outside of the movement. What is happening on the planet right now is bigger than any one person or group. It's bigger than UCC filings or DOV documents. It's about winning back our true freedom, and we have more momentum now than ever before. We are all pushing toward the same end goal. When issues arise we don't see eye to eye on, let us not forget that. I hope this helps to clear things up.
Oh, I think it does beautifully. Well done.
Somebody asked in the chat room who is Anonymous. I put, you can go into Facebook and go to the Facebook room. I believe it's OPPT USA, and you can find out who the names are that I mentioned as anonymous. But I don't want to read them out because I don't want to put them on blast out of respect for those individuals. But if you want to go on Facebook and see the actual thread, it's there and anybody can see it.
The only thing I wanted to add, which we talked about earlier, was the definition and the separation, perhaps, of some terms. You know, like when people refer to OPPT or the one people, those two get confused. Firstly, the One People's Public Trust, or OPPT, was in fact a trust that has since been reconciled. The One People is just another name for humanity. So to say that the movement of the One People can be hijacked, firstly, again, you're making it out to be a movement. Secondly, it can be argued that humanity was hijacked a long time ago. But the One People is, for me at least, it's another word for humanity. And each one of us who takes any form of action is doing it on behalf of ourselves. And
exactly. You know, I sometimes think, Lisa, that people have this idea in their mind that we have some sort of headquarters and office, and you know, that there's board meetings and such,
staff
and membership,
and none of that exists. None of it exists. We're just people.
Exactly.
We have a common belief, that humanity should be free, and that no one should have authority over another without explicit consent. And
this is the same reason why Heather never wanted there to be an official, outside of the One People's Public Trust official website. She would never claim that there was an official website because once that one was taken down, and even with IUV.com, IUV isn't even a official website. What goes up there is a lot of the great detail, but if somebody were to do anything, if they were to go up against the system or whatever, and everybody's ultimately responsible for themselves and their own actions. The One People's Public Trust cannot claim responsibility for the actions of another. So if somebody follows all this information and they decide that they are going to go off and declare themselves as more powerful over somebody else or damage the person or property of another, there's nobody that's responsible for that action but the person that committed that action. With Kiri's case in New Zealand, Kiri is the one that's responsible for her actions. She didn't consult with anybody ahead of time as far as what she was going to do. It was based on her own free will. And she hit the ground running when she found out that there were certain pieces of the puzzle that she needed in order for her to walk confidently into that bank, and she did so. We're giving it attention because it's a cool story of somebody blazing the trail to create a new way, and it goes in line with some of the things that we're doing on a higher level. But she's not a representation, or she's not a somebody that has been knighted a OPPT knight, and that has the ability to go out and represent the OPPT movement. I think that's where a lot of the confusion over the last 7 months has come from, is there's been a lot of slandering of other people saying that this isn't within the integrity of the OPPT. If you say something isn't in integrity, that's your label of it. So ultimately, we are all the one people. Everybody that knows about One People's Public Trust, and everybody that doesn't know about One People's Public Trust are all about the one people, are all part of the one people. No person's actions or agendas or words or things they say is representative of the movement, because there is no movement. This whole movement thing, I think, is what we need to really steer clear from.
Did you want to say something, Bob?
Kind of.
Go for it.
It's we all support each other.
Yeah.
And when people stop, pitting this group against that group, we're all in the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
Every single man, woman, and child, we're all in the same boat. We all have the same, corporate governments trying to impose authority over us. And as far as I'm concerned, we're done with all of this separation.
Yes.
There is no separation. I do not look at the one people, the freemen, the Rusa, and all. They're all people, every single one of them. And I would be willing to help any one of my brothers and sisters, and I don't care what label that they go by. If they're being oppressed, I would support them, because way back when, we all talked about how what affects one of us affects all of us, every single one. When you are doing something good for someone, right? You give them a smile, and you see that. You instantly feel good because there's a connection. There's a connection to you and every other person on the planet. And whatever you do to the other person instantly will affect you. If you did harm to them, right, it will affect you. It's going to affect your psyche. It's going to affect your conscience. Because what affects one of us affects all of us. This is the same reason why when we look at television and we see something gruesome on the screen, we cringe, because we feel the other's pain, even though it may not be real. And people have really got to start to tune into that connection that we have with each and every one of us. Each and every one of us are the same. We are pieces of the whole. And I don't really want to give much more attention to the whole separation thing, other than to say that we are one people.
Beautifully put.
Just like the theme song says.
Exactly. I'm struggling to find a word to describe what the one people, some would call it a movement. Phenomenon is about as close as I can actually get to what.
It's an awakening
because it's planet shift of consciousness.
Yeah, it's just humanity.
So we don't have a word for that yet.
It's an awakening. It's a renaissance. It's the time for it. We know it was coming. It was no surprise. It's no surprise to them. It's no surprise to me. Humanity is waking up. People are understanding. It's not that difficult a concept to understand that we are all equal. That's not a real hard concept.
Not at all. Not at all.
And
also,
the brilliant thing I'm finding really encouraging is that when you actually are talking to people who are helping us with these various issues, with Kiri and with an Australian grantee that we'll be talking about, and there are others that Bob's aware of. Everybody's aware of people who are having clashes with the system. That by and large, most of the people we are dealing with really get this. What we're talking about now, that we are one. The only divisions that are between any of us are the ones that we allow our partners in contrast to insert into our psyche. And I'm finding that most of the people who are following these shows and have followed us along from the start are almost division-proof now. Okay, they're recognizing division when it comes up, which is fantastic, because it means this phenomenon, this concept, this awakening can continue to spread outwards without being stopped, because it's only division that will stop it.
There's also that quote. How's it go? No problem exists outside of the mind.
That's right.
Outside of what?
Outside of the mind.
Oh, okay, that's not what I thought you said, but that's better.
It's not even us versus them. And if you later on, I'm going to tell you about my story about my experience with my bank. But the people in the bank that are working also are feeling the oppression.
Well, let's address that, because there does seem to be some people who think that Kiri's the only one who's done this. Kiri's just done this in the most public way, and has had our complete support. But she's not the only one. Not everyone is waiting for Heather. Not everybody even knows about the One People's Public Trust or the IUV system. They're doing their own process, which is pretty much what Kiri did anyway. And we do have one of our own. Bob had come up with his own declaration and did go and visit his bank. So let's go to it, Bob. Tell your story.
Well, first off, I'm not one to wait.
No, you're not.
I'm just not a waiter. And our doing does not depend on any other's doing. Just so I get that straight and clear. Mm-hmm. My doing, I'm responsible for, and I'm not depending on anyone else's doing for my doing. So, I did. I created what I call the Certificate of Value to certify my value being secured in 3.5 million units. I also gave a letter of intent and a foreclosure notice along with the UCC financing statement securing all of our value. And that document is, I think, 40004135 or something like that. I mean, 20004135. And I presented that to the bank. Now, when I first went into the bank, I spoke with the assistant vice president. And she was very, very helpful, very nice. And she asked me, what can I do for you? And I explained, I said, we are representatives of the new financial system that is forthcoming. In the position that you're in, I'm sure that you're very well aware that there's some major changes happening in the financial industry. And she just laughed. And she's like, you don't have to tell me, And she did let slip that September 1st will be here before we know it. We can talk about that later. But anyway,
yeah, let's come back to that one.
So I says, well, are you aware of the foreclosure of the Bank of International Settlements and all of its charters? And she says, no. So I gave her a copy of the foreclosure flyer, and she immediately started to get hesitant, you know? And I assured her, I said, look, I'm not here to shut down the bank. You know, I said, I've been a member of this bank since 2009. I would like to continue my relationship with the bank, but I want to do so transparently and under my terms and conditions. And she goes, fine, well, then what can we do for you? Well, I explained to her about the whole process which led to the foreclosure. And along the way, because I'm not going to go through everything in detail, but I explained from the paradigm report and what was found that all loans were fraudulent because they were basically created out of nothing and lent back to the people who were always the creditors. She did confirm that money was created on the spot on the screen. She confirmed that they don't have to lend out their deposits, that they lend it based on the exchange of the promissory note. And she also confirmed that all money was based and backed by the energy and value of the people. And so she looked at my certificate of value, and she read the front of it, which basically says that, you know, this is my value, my body, my soul, which has been secured under UCC filings, blah, 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 duly verified, and so forth, all Heather speak, 5 billion units. And she looked at it, and she read it, and she says, for every man, woman, and child. And she goes, is that for me, too? And I said, yes, it's for you, too. Just because you're working for a bank does not mean that you're not one of the people. And she understood everything that I was saying up until that point, and she said, well, I really don't understand how I could have all this money having not earned it. And I said, well, really, how valuable do you think you are? And I asked her how much she would sell her soul for, and she wouldn't. I even offered her $100 billion for it. She refused. And I says, well, you're pretty valuable then, aren't you? Don't you think you should be able to spend some of that value? And she seemed to get it, and she was like, well, I don't know what to do with this certificate. I don't know how to process. This is all new. I've never. I says, that's why it's called the new financial system. I says, why don't you take these documents, take it down to your underwriting department. They can verify the security, the financing statement, and the numbers that are provided on the document. They can assign the document a custom number, and you can deposit it as a security. And she goes, wow, you know an awful lot about the banking industry. And I said, well, you know, don't you think people should know? And this is the whole point about operating transparently. And she goes, okay, well, I'm going to send it down, and, you know, and she whispered in my ear, she goes, I really, really hope that this goes through for you, because if it does, I'm next in line. This is the assistant vice president of the bank.
This is not the branch either. It's like the assistant vice president of the
head office.
Of the main office, right.
Mm. Yeah.
And so she said, you know, we should know within 72 hours. That was on.
This was last Thursday.
That was last Thursday. So I did call the bank this morning, and they transferred me to the vice president. Now I'm moving up, and she was in a different office, and I spoke with her, and she says, well, I spoke with my assistant, and I heard everything that she had to say. I haven't seen the documents that you presented yet, but I'm going to tell you, I really don't think that we can do what you're asking. And I says, oh, really? Why? And she says, well, you want us to deposit $3.5 million in your account. I said, yes, basically. And she goes, well, I didn't see your certificate, or I don't know the validity of this foreclosure. You know, I haven't looked at the documents. And I said, I understand that, right? But she says, but from what I understand, there's no origin of the money. Where's the money coming from? Where's the money originate? And I said, I might ask that same question of you for every loan that you've purportedly ever given to anyone. Where did the origin of those funds come from? Can you give me the right title and ownership? 3 generations for any loan, anyone that you've ever given to any person at any time. And her response was, and I quote, well, and I says, the reason why you can't is because we are always the creditors. We are the creditors of every lending transaction ever made, and have always been so and remain so. As the creditor and the creator of every representation of value, also known as money, right? I wish to deposit that value in your bank. And unless you have a superior court judge giving a lawful reason why these UCC filings are not valid, or you have rebutted those filings with specificity and particularity, they stand as international law in court. And I sent her a letter, and I says, the letter basically said that, due to the nature of the documents that I gave you and the foreclosure of the banking system for cause of operating private money systems, profiteering and benefiting from the operation of a debt slavery system, and committing treason against the one people, I would like to verify that you, by your actions, are not upholding a debt slavery system.
Oh, wow.
Please provide the following. And just what I asked her, documentation of the origin of any funds that has been lent out at any time to anyone, the origin, right, and title, 3 generations. Otherwise, without providing that proof, they, in fact, are admitting to the point that no such documents exist because no such loan was ever made. And that we, in fact, the money is actually coming from us and based on us. And by your actions, you are either proving yourself to be complicit in upholding a debt slavery system, or I have given you the opportunity to continue to operate honestly and transparently. Which do you choose? And she says, I'm going to have to send this to our legal department. You're not going to get an answer today. So I'm still waiting.
Bob.
A round of applause.
Oh, God.
Beautiful. Yeah, Bob, can you publish that letter? Brian, can you publish that letter on your blog? I think that's brilliantly put, because it is any loan ever made.
Somebody just said in the chat room, Bob, that you should teach classes. They'd listen to this. What was it, 20 times a week? Something like that.
I will. I'll go back to the archive, and I will. If anybody listening wants to go back to the archive and type that up, what Bob just said.
Bob's got it as a letter. He was reading a letter.
Well, it's basically an adaptation of the request for origin of funds.
Yeah, except you're asking about all loans, not just yours.
Yes.
Yeah, let's get that up.
Heather's was oriented towards investigating the loan that she was involved with. That's where that came from. Bob's just extended it out, rightfully so, to any loan. That really throws down the glove, because that's saying, prove that you ever made an honest transaction. Show me one. And they can't. That's actually hilarious.
Well, she asked me where the origin of my funds were, so I thought turnaround was fair play. Where's the origin of yours?
Exactly, because it's standing in front of you.
Yes.
And by the way, I did give her paperwork showing where the origin of my funds were duly secured. She hasn't yet. So
big point of the story being is that Kiri's not the only one. Bob's not the only one. When I talked to Dee today, Dee and Heather know of a few other people that have done the exact same thing. And as far as the process of releasing the actual DOV documents, you got to imagine everybody that's listening to this call, virtually everyone, maybe not everyone right away because they don't want to be the first to jump in, but virtually everyone that's in the chat room that's going to listen to this call, once those DOV documents are officially out, they're going to the bank, and it's going to be a floodgate. And right now, what's happening is the stage is being set for that very thing to take place.
Exactly, and the work that Bob has done and that Kiri has done is helping us develop a library of conversations that we can use, because we'll be in front of different people, we'll throw back different things, and we're going to have a whole range of ideas and ways to put it right back in their lap. You know, prove who the creditor is. Prove that you've been doing the right thing all these years. Oh, you can't? Well, I can prove that I hold the value, and here is mine.
Yeah.
So it's sort of equipping everybody for the task.
There was a few courtesy notice success stories. I don't know if we want to talk about those.
Sure.
On the show as well. Let's see. Let's start out. The big one that got a lot of attention on my blog was a woman named Shirley out of Detroit, and she had a $99,900 and some odd dollar loan with Chase Bank, and they sent her a letter. I published the letter, and I did a lot of researching, and the people that commented did their own due diligence as well. And the letter basically said, let me just go to it real quick. I want to go to it because it'll make for a really good discussion here. It said the loan has been released on your mortgage. The lien on your mortgage has been released. However, you still owe the debt on the property. So I did some background. I had never heard about that kind of process before, and I was a mortgage broker for 5 years. Anytime the lien is released, it's typically because the loan is paid off, in which case the lien is released, and then there is no more debt that's on the property. I'll share the link in the chat. But the point that I tried to make on the blog post was that when this action was taken, first of all, this woman Shirley, she was trying to work with her bank for I don't even know how many months, and they weren't budging on everything that she was requesting. And finally, she decided that she was going to send a courtesy notice in, and she got one call back, and then she followed it up with an invoice for 2,000 ounces of silver or what have you. And then following the invoice, she was sent a release of lien on the mortgage document as a result. Now, the point that I tried to make is that, yeah, it might still say that she owes debt on the property, but they released her from her mortgage payment indefinitely until she decides to do some kind of a refinance, maybe pull cash out or sell the property. So she went from struggling.
So who does she owe it to?
I don't know. Supposedly it's still attached to the property somehow, but the lien is the vehicle that allows for a loan or a mortgage to. Here's what the actual document says. I found it. It says. Here it is. 1 second. Okay, so it says from Chase Bank. In bold at the top, we are releasing the mortgage lien on the property. And it says, Dear Shirley, we are writing to let you know that at the instruction of your loan investor, we are releasing the lien on the mortgage loan referenced above. This means you are still responsible for the debt on your mortgage, but you can now explore your option to sell or refinance. You don't have to sign or return anything for this to happen. So,
by releasing the lien, Brian, basically they are releasing their right to collect a debt. They no longer have any rights to that debt anymore. It is no longer secured. By releasing that lien without the reason why they don't ever release the lien before the debt is paid is because they'll never get paid.
Mm-hmm. Here's my conclusion. Keep going, Bob.
So as long as there is a lien on the property, she can never transfer title to the property. She can never, sell the property or do anything until that's what the title search is all for. So by releasing the right to collect a debt, they're depending on her stupidity, which I'm sure she's not. They're depending on her ignorance to go ahead and pay it anyway. But by releasing the lien, they are no longer, by releasing the lien, there's no longer any way that they can substantiate that debt.
Yep. What if everybody that has a mortgage does this? The big thing, the big takeaway for this particular success story is that they weren't working with her before. They were refusing to work with her before on her payment prior to submitting a courtesy notice. Somewhere in that courtesy notice, the bank's legal department reviewed it and said, there's something we got to do here. And then it triggered the action for them to send in a release of lien on the mortgage. Think about what it does, what damage it does to the system if everybody that has a fraudulent loan, which as we know, every loan from a bank is not legitimate and fraudulent, just like Bob just expressed in illustrating the story with his bank. And every homeowner stopped making their mortgage payments as a result of understanding that their loans are fraud. The banks would have some serious issues on their hands with liquidity as far as not receiving those monthly mortgage payments that they get on a monthly basis. So I looked at that as being a huge – all they're telling her now is just pay your property taxes. Her next step is to challenge her property taxes because we all know – well, maybe we don't all know, but property tax is voluntary. You don't have – there's no law that says you have to pay property tax, just like there's no law that says you have to pay income tax. So next she's going to challenge her property taxes. And who knows, she very well may even challenge her insurance. But she went from having to spend, I don't know, $700-800 a month to dropping it down to, $100 maybe, if that, with taxes and insurance, and not having to go through the foreclosure process and being displaced as far as not having a place to live. So, the skeptics of this story, they want to say, well, banks take away, they release liens on mortgages all the time. Here's examples of, certain times where they've done that for other people that didn't send in a courtesy notice. Yeah, cool, that's all good and great. Maybe they have. I imagine based on the way that this letter is printed out, this is some kind of a skeleton thing that they've used in other situations. I agree with that. But the fact of the matter is that she used a courtesy notice to ultimately get her something that she didn't have access to before. Huge success story, because now she's in a situation where she's not bending over backwards, breaking her back to try to stay in her property anymore. That's a slam dunk as far as I'm concerned. Whether or not she still allegedly owes the debt, the fraudulent debt on the loan, is beside the point. I guarantee you a guy like Bob could probably talk his way right through that situation over the course of a few hours of writing his letters. So $100,000, that's a pretty big one. Bob could probably tell the story of his buddy with the student loans. That was another pretty big one that happened recently.
Yeah, he sent a courtesy notice to his student loan institution.
Who are we talking about, Bob?
Who's that?
Who are you talking about?
I was talking about Kevin.
Okay.
And I believe it was I forget, was it the CEO that sent him a letter asking him to that the debt would be released and to please release him from the courtesy notice that he sent, from the terms and conditions of the courtesy notice. And that was $160,000 student loan.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Brian, was there any more, other than the initial courtesy notice, was there any more exchange of communication between that person and the bank before they released the lien?
It was one call. No, it was one or two calls, enough to get Shirley to send an invoice in. And after she had sent the invoice in, the direct response to the invoice was the release of lien document. And that was it.
And Bob, was that the same? Was there an invoice put to these people to encourage them to release the lien?
There was an invoice. There was an invoice sent to him. And once he got the invoice, he wanted to be released.
Released from the loan. Yeah,
That's
very good.
This is huge as far as I'm concerned. I had heard a lot of stories about people having success with courtesy notices. These are the first few that I've heard, and I've seen the documentation to support it. And I don't care what anybody says. This is the banks saying, admitting point blank, our debts, these loans are fraudulent because we have no response to this, and we're not going to sidestep you because of whatever is in there that raised the red flags for their legal department. They said, don't want to mess with this. Let's go ahead and release the lien. Let's go ahead and forgive the $160,000 worth of student loans.
Well, this is a point I made to the assistant vice president. And she was like, she was questioning the validity of the foreclosure. I says, is there any doubt that the banking system has been fraudulent? I said, do you think that we got to the point that we're at by accident? By the accident of one or two, three people? Or was it an orchestrated thing? And she had to admit, she's like, you're right. I said, do I need to mention LIBOR? Do I need to mention, I said, they're crooks. And I'm not calling you a crook. I know you just work here for this institution. But your boss's bosses, they know what's up. And I treated her as though she was one of the people, come join us. And she responded in that way.
There was one more. There's one more a guy sent me. It was, can't remember his name off the top of my head, but it was I believe it was a $36,000 second mortgage, and he sent me was some harassing. This is I'm not going to share his name. Actually, I don't mind. I think it's his alias. It's a guy who goes by Papa Bear. And he sent me it was a bill. He sent courtesy note. Here, this is what he said. He said, I filed a UCC-1 financing form and secured all my property. This was done in my resident state as it is also my birth state. I stopped paying in November. I found out about OPPT in January. When I got the first notice, I sent the courtesy notice to the alleged CEO. When I received a call about collection, I asked their names and made sure they worked at the address I sent the other mail to. I sent them all a return receipt. I sent a bill twice after receiving 2 calls. I sent courtesy notices to the calling reps so they understood. And I sent the third bill with the past due notice about 2 weeks ago. I sent that to the alleged CEO also. Today I got an email telling me my statement was available online. When I checked the balance, my balance was listed as 0.00. And I have the collection notice, and then I have the picture of his account saying 0.00. I think that one was like $36,000. But they didn't even give him any response. See, here's what they're doing. They're not giving a response saying we've reviewed your courtesy notice. The last thing they're going to do is say, hey, you're right. Our loans are fraudulent. We're going to go ahead and forgive this for you. Just please
no
don't
one's putting that in pipe.
Please don't tell anybody about it. So what they're doing is they're doing these things with the hopes of that they're just going to be one-offs type people that they can deal with as they come along. And they're handling it by the way that they did with Shirley's, where they're using some skeleton process that they probably use for other stories or other cases, where they can duplicate it and it doesn't let the cat out of the bag for why they're doing it because they don't address it whatsoever. What better way to do that in this case with Papa Bear than to just make it balance zero and not even say why? Because if he tries to go tell that story, look, I've seen the document that shows that he owes the money, and then I've seen his account balance is zero. Is there a possibility that he went and paid $36,000 to his second mortgage and paid it off, and he's just trying to pull the wool over my eyes? Sure, absolutely. I don't believe that as being the case. I think that would be ridiculous. But if he ever tried to claim this story as being what happened, that's what a skeptic would likely say. Is they say, well, what do you mean that this is what they did? I see your balance is zero. How do I know it hasn't always been that way? How do I know you didn't pay it off? So they're covering their tracks really well. Smart on their part, but what happens when this starts happening in mass numbers? Well, the system can't handle that kind of pressure.
Brian, I've got a message for you from Barbara in regards to, was it Shirley's story? The mortgage release? The lien release?
Yeah.
Was this release filed at the county recorder's office to effectuate it as a pseudo-satisfaction of mortgage? If not perfected at the county recorder's office, then it will come up as unsatisfied in title search when she goes to sell it. If it hasn't, then she needs to get it recorded so it won't come up in a title exam. There are also ways around that, but I'll leave it at this for now. So if you're listening, Shirley, which you may well be, go and check it out at the county recorder's office. Now, we might have some people standing by on Skype to give us an update on Kiri's situation. Where did that just get? Okay. Bob, can you call that one in, if you haven't already?
Yeah.
Hello, Jen.
You there, Lisa?
Yes, you're with us, and we're live on the radio.
I might have to also get you to Skype directly into Claire. I just try to do a hookup unless you guys are capable of that at your end.
Can you send me her Skype?
Yeah.
Please. So we got an update this morning, and Brian did also post it on his blog, I believe. Jenny, who's on the line with us now, was in the courtroom via Skype. Jenny's located in Sydney. Somebody had a computer on them in the courtroom with Skype on, and Jenny was able to hear everything.
Lisa, who did you want me to bring in?
This name that's Jen's just typed in.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
I might get you guys to try to Skype into Anaru Jakes.
Yes, we're working on it. Yep. There's a bit of echo on your end, though, darling. Have you got headphones on, or can you get some if you haven't?
Okay, I can. Hang 5.
You are live, by the way, just in case you didn't hear that.
Yeah, I did. All right.
Okay.
Gotcha. How's that?
That's better. Thank you. So, obviously, there was about 80 or more people who turned up at the courtroom this morning.
Yeah, that's right.
You were there via Skype. You were able to hear what was happening. It sounded like it got very loud.
Yeah.
So just give us a quick rundown on what you were able to at least hear.
Well, I just got notice that Kiri was physically removed, and some of our people saw the police pulling Kiri's hair.
Now, when you were in there via Skype,
yep.
What was going on? Was Kiri in the room?
Remember, no, that she wasn't allowed out.
So she wasn't actually in the courtroom?
No, they wouldn't let her out into the courtroom. Our people had no access to Kiri.
So what was going down? Who was talking?
When you heard, you had Claire Muncaster talking, and you had some of our elders talking as well.
Didn't you say that you could hear Kiri, the people from inside the court could hear Kiri at some point? Was she like yelling from a back room or something?
Yeah, she was screaming. Remember I said to you, there was screaming?
Mm-hmm.
They actually were pulling Kiri's hair. They were physically assaulting Kiri. I've just found out.
Okay, so now she's been removed from the court to an undisclosed location. They won't release her whereabouts, and she's apparently going to be put in front of a judge somewhere.
That's right. That's exactly right.
With no one present.
No one present. So what's happening is if you can Skype into Anaru, the name I've just put up.
Yeah, we're trying to add her now.
Yeah.
She's not answering though.
Yeah, I'll just call her and tell her to call. Answer.
So what's the next step as far as you know?
That's why they're having this meeting. They're sitting around right now talking about it.
Who's they?
The elders, Claire, the main people, the marshal, the chief native assessor.
Now the Governor General got involved at some point.
Yeah, a notice was sent through by the Governor General to have Kiri released. It's been ignored. So we were trying to contact him today.
You're saying the Governor General of New Zealand?
That's right.
Is being ignored by the local police.
Yes.
So who runs?
And the reason we know that is because that's right. The reason we know that is because the Chief Native Assessor, it's his nephew. That's why we know that. So yes, what did they lose that notice? Did it just go missing, or are they just ignoring it, or?
So they're not even playing by their own rules, as corrupt and malleable as they are. They're not even playing by those.
No, well, who takes somebody and puts her in front of a judge when no one's around? Nobody.
Well, people have got something to hide, or fear of what the rest of the population have to say about that particular action.
That's right.
So just to clarify, the Governor General of New Zealand is the nephew of a native elder assessor.
That's right.
Who is also working with Kiri to defend Kiri from the native point of view.
That's right.
Okay.
What's the role of native assessor? What does the Chief Native Assessor actually do?
The Chief Native Assessor has a standing on the land. You see, we have our own court systems as well in New Zealand, where as a people, we take our own business to our own court. So this is the problem in New Zealand. There are other things happening. It's not as simple and as clear as we all think it is. We have our own courts, our people. So our thing is to take her out of that court, and we'll deal with it in our what we call te courti. But they can't even get her out because we can't even get to her. They're just ignoring us and denying us every right possible. I asked Claire, how did you go when you questioned their identification, their standing, their authority, their identification of law, and their original accommodation agreement? She said she was just ignored the whole time she asked those same questions.
Now, what pretense are they holding her under? Is this still the fraud charges?
Still the fraud charge. The same charges which were take, obtain. Do you remember it, Brian? Take, obtain documents for pecuniary advantage.
It's still the same pecuniary advantage charge.
What happened to the breaching of the peace charge?
We don't know. All we have is that one charge times 4.
And what's the rough numbers that you've got of people turning up at this courthouse?
We're looking at about 80 people. There was media as well, as you know now, because there's been media reports already hit the news.
Mainstream news?
It's mainstream because it's hitting. I'm just going to reiterate exactly what the media is saying, and they're leaving out. Here is something for you, Lisa. They did speak of OPPT, and then it's been amended, but I'd already picked it up. It has been amended, and OPP was taken out.
Oh,
really?
Yeah. Their first. I just got this on Facebook a few minutes ago too. Their first release had a hyperlink to a Facebook OPPT group, and they quickly changed it and took that out. And they took out a couple other parts also, and they're now spinning it to make it look like this is just a Maori sovereignty movement.
Yeah.
Because they don't want people going, what's OPPT, and looking it up.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're trying to take it all out of there.
Someone's got music. Oh, there you go.
Yep, I just turned it off. Yeah, they're trying to take all those. There was an actual reference to OPPT Aotearoa, New Zealand, and mortgage terminators. And now it's been deleted.
I did see that too, and mortgage terminators, yes.
Yeah. And I've just had word it's been deleted and... Sorry?
They just don't want people looking these things up.
No, and it was a good link. Unfortunately, however, that link went through to Aotearoa, and then there's Bronny at the other end. So we had a little... Yeah?
Bob, I'm just going to give Bob a heads up. We're getting a lot of people calling out for us to take a few minutes to do a meditation on this.
Yes.
Good call.
And so I'll hand that over to Bob in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. Bob, you're born to do these, man. You got it.
Yeah. Look, I'm sitting here listening to everything that's being said, and I'm realizing one of their greatest fears will be that the words "the one people" and "the one people's public trust" are heard on mainstream media.
Mhm. Exactly.
We need to think about that. Maybe we need to put some effort into actually just getting those words on mainstream media.
Well,
Even if only in
it.
past. Just food for thought, folks. But let's finish
after
discussing.
that.
Kiri.
Sorry.
That's okay.
After that, I actually released that petition to the media again with all the one that you put out, Brian.
Okay.
I released that again just minutes ago to the media. So I don't know if it's getting through. But we can only...
We have a couple of immediate email addresses that are on the petitions that Sophia Love drew up and are on IUV.com. There's a couple media addresses. I could share those in the chat if people want to make their own story or take my blog post and send them so they kind of get it from all angles, if anybody has any interest in doing that.
Yeah, I'll just give you some too.
I'll compile those while we chat.
Yeah.
Now, also, I know, Jenny, you wanted to say thank you, basically, because there's been a lot of support from all over the world. Kiri's family were put into a tough situation when she was taken, financially and just with the basic necessities. And a lot of you have been very, very supportive. So, Jenny, do you want to go from there? We still got you, Jen? Hello, Jenny.
Looks like she might have dropped off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's redialing.
There have been food packages sent. People have actually gone and handpicked and gone shopping and put together food parcels and had them sent to her family. There's been financial donations. That money is going to food. It's going to the printing of documents and support papers. It's going to travel expenses, getting people to the courtrooms. It is going to good use. So, personally, I want to thank everyone too. But I know Jenny, on behalf of Kiri and her family and everybody involved, wanted to just say a big thank you. Jenny, do we have you back? No, it's not. Okay, so that seems to be where things are at, guys. She's in an undisclosed location. They're not revealing where she is. They're going to put her in front of an unnamed judge in an undisclosed location. This seems to be getting, talk about giving people enough rope to hang themselves.
The problem we were having too, Lisa, was although that directed straight to Aotearoa OPPT, there was problems at that end. I got wind that there was some posts put up. So, do you know what I mean?
I think I do. Yes.
Yeah. So maybe we need to rectify a few things like that because we had a direct link going into our sites, and then there was wasn't some not so nice stuff at the other end.
I mean, they're trying to make an example of her.
Yes.
Because they don't want people following in her footsteps.
And I think they're also scared, and they're also scared of OPPT. Why are they deleting it? When we're putting it everywhere. It's all over all of our documents. Everything we do refers to OPPT. Everything.
Interesting.
So, Brian, if we can get clever with a quick, the right documents to just keep posting out to the media to release Kiri and John Keys and his people.
Okay, yeah, I posted what I'm going to do is I posted all the news correspondence email addresses on the chat, but for everybody that's listening to the call that's not on the chat, go to my blog. I will also add them at the bottom of my blog. It's titled Kiri Campbell Updates from Inside the Courtroom. And if we can get a lot of action on people sending sending the link to the story, if they want to write their own words, they can. Whatever they would prefer, whatever, just to get the message out to the media. That way they get more press coverage on the story.
Yeah.
What was that? There's also an AVAS petition, if anyone wants to sign on for that. There's an AVAS petition to get Kiri freed.
Yeah, that's a great petition as well. That's great, that petition. I've actually looked at it and sent it out.
Okay. Well, thanks Jenny for the update, and I know you're going to keep us posted in real time as much as possible.
Yeah.
As to what's happening over there. Give Kiri our love if you can.
We just got to try and find her right now. That's really what we're all trying to do. I think she's well aware what we're trying to do.
Yep.
Jenny, has she appeared before the same judge each time?
Remember, we didn't get a judge. They had a JP.
Right.
And
is it still the same person? She each time?
This is the first judge.
Okay. So, do we have details of the judge?
No, nothing. See how difficult it is?
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult to get any email addresses, any names. They won't tell us what their names are. It's Constable Stephanie or Constable something. So we don't even have a name of the judge, because I know Claire would have got that to me ASAP.
Definitely.
There are other people trying to find out who the judge was that are higher than we are. So.
Okay. Well, if you find out, we just need to distribute it, and then we can put pressure on them. Just via email, fax, phone, whatever.
Yeah.
Just so that they know they're visible.
It's just bringing everything alive. I mean, although it's not a good situation for Kiri right now, it's really awakening everybody. Maybe this was the plan all along.
Someone's posting criticisms of OPPT on Kiri's Facebook page. Guys, people are going to do what they're going to do, So, what are you going to do?
Is it
Just
Mike?
ignore it. I don't know. I haven't seen them myself. Someone just mentioned it in the chat room. So, Bob, you ready?
I guess so.
Okay.
Well, what are we doing here? We're creating space for Kiri. What's the intent? Actually, Jenny, if you could mute your Skype, that would be great.
Okay.
There we go.
We'll all mute out in a second. I'll put some music on, but
Well, there's a couple of things I want, and I was going to save this for the collective imagination, if we wanted to do a meditation, but something's telling me that she's there for a reason.
Absolutely.
And I don't necessarily want to meditate to remove her from her situation necessarily, but for the best outcome for all of mankind.
Yeah. I think Kiri would support that too.
She would. We just lend her energy for her mission.
And another thing we can focus on is all of those who are trying to oppress her, abrogate her, or diminish her energy.
Oh, sorry, that was really that noise.
Sorry.
That what I would like to do for them is to help them to see in a very profound way what it is that they are doing, and any energy directed to her be reflected back at them so that they can see and feel their own actions themselves.
Yeah.
Reflect it back to them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. I want to concentrate on helping them to transform, helping them to see, and helping them to
awaken.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. What music would you like?
Wait, hold on. Let me see if I can find it. I got it.
Great. All right, everybody mute out, and we'll go from there.
Just before we start, Bob, Jenny's offered to come in and bring forward, express that what you just said there in the language, the language of her ancestors. Excuse me.
Oh, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Kia ora, guys. I'm back.
Mm-hmm. So all you got to do is just decide which of you will lead away, and it'll just unfold.
I'll start with the Māori prayer, so I'll just bring us in and I'll take it out. You can maybe go into music after that.
Okay.
Hoki wairua mai rā e tupone, hoki wairua mai rā I o matua. Hui hui mai rā tātou mātou taruru nui kawe ki te pōnui e. Haere mai. Haere mai, haere mai. Thank you.
Beautiful.
I want everyone to relax. Find a comfortable spot and concentrate on your breathing. Deep breaths in and out of the mouth. With each breath, you are relaxing and moving within. You are finding that space, the space within your heart that allows empathy, the space that allows so many connections from person to person, the space of compassion. And allow this energy to fill your being. As we each connect with our sister Kiri, with love and compassion flowing towards her. Imagine the energy moving towards her, enveloping her in iridescent color, a sphere of beauty that just infuses her with warmth, love, affection, and support. Allowing that all of her actions be that of the greatest good for all of humanity, providing her the strength to see it through, and also providing the protection from harm of her being and abrogation of any of her energy. As you see the energies pour around her, you see the sphere glowing, pulsating with power, iridescent and reflective, reflecting all negative energies directed at her back to its source, increased 10,000-fold. See that energy penetrating their hearts. See it filling them with realization, opening their eyes to the pain they are causing their very sister. See the colors transform in them from red to a brilliant blue. that pour out amongst all those associated with this case, all those who would touch it, all those who would look at it, all those who would think of it, see it in any form or representation, will be touched by this energy. And as our intention to help all humanity in the greatest outcome for all involved, so it is done.
Oh, you're good. That was wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dude, you need to make meditation CDs. I'd buy that.
And thank you to Jenny for the introduction, because that brought tears to my eyes as well.
Yes.
That was very emotional.
I felt the energy of it. Very powerful.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. Okay. Well, I need to pull myself together a little bit. We're going to have an update from Grant, Chris. Is that happening?
We are. Yeah, I just need Bob to pull his contact in so I can dial him. And I'll just repost it so he can find it.
Okay.
Just a few moments of silence here, folks, while we
all need a minute to compose ourselves anyway.
Yeah. We do. We do.
Good.
A little bit of quiet time. Just for a moment.
Okay, I found him.
Okay. There he is.
And
let me just call.
And Bob, before I forget, we were going to get back to the September.
Can you
1st.
hit the dial button, Bob? Can you just hit the dial button on Grant?
got
Green
it.
one? Great. There we go.
Now, just as a little bit of background while we're waiting, Grant was dealing with a financial issue that he was questioning, and I believe didn't turn up to a court date because they didn't provide their standing and authority for him to even turn up, to compel him to turn up. As a result of that, they issued a warrant for him and picked him up, took him away. When he questioned them in court about jurisdiction, they charged him with contempt, put him in prison, and were prepared to hold him without charge for 28 days. And I think he spent, how much in total? 10 days?
14.
14 days in jail. And we did talk about this on the last One People show, I believe, and as a result of that, he did get a lot of support. There was a lot of attention put on the jail. They received a lot of phone calls and faxes and emails. Grant certainly knew that we were out there supporting him.
Grant, if you're listening, you may have to accept my my request, contact request, before I can add you.
Chris, if you're already connected with him, can you just send him that message?
I will. He should actually be listening, and I'll just.
No, he can correct anything that I just said if it's not 100%. But that's my understanding of what happened. He is now out on. What was it? Is he out on bail?
That's a good question. I'll have to get Grant to answer that. I'm not sure exactly what state he's reached. Okay. Do you have Skype credit, Bob? Bob, do you have Skype credit? Are you able to dial?
No. Is he on his phone?
He actually is on his phone.
If you give me his number and he calls in, I'll pick him up off the switchboard.
Okay.
Sorry about that, typing.
That's the number for him to call, Chris.
Okay.
He may be already listening through the phone, so.
If you are listening, it's 64. Oh, you've got to call an American number though to do that. Anyway.
Okay.
We'll move along just while we get that in the background. Bob, when you were talking about your bank, you said that the Vice President let slip that September 1st will be here before we know it.
Yes.
And you said, I'll get back to that.
Yes. September 1st seems to be a date that's coming up quite a bit. And I don't know if that's an energetic day or not, but apparently a lot of things are happening on September 1st. From the resignation of Ben Bernanke, the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, the resignation of Janet Napolitano from Director of Homeland Security, and the morto propria issued by the Pope, stripping all public officials, judges, and public servants of immunity from prosecution for crimes against humanity, takes place effective September 1st.
The big question I have around that is it part of the re-phoenixing of the old system so that they can bring in their quote-unquote new financial system, do a bunch of arrests based on this Vatican proclamation, whatever you want to call it, make it look like they're cleaning up the system and giving us a new system, or is it a legitimate repurposing of perhaps the Vatican? I mean, the old Pope quit and we got a new one for a reason. So who is this guy? Is he one of the many walk-ins we're getting at these levels that we've talked about before? And even if, I mean, it's so complex, because even if he's, say, quote unquote a bad guy, and he's just playing his role in the re-phoenixing of the system, I still believe that anything they try and do that is not in the highest good of all these days is going to come back and bite him on the bum. So even if his intent isn't pure, the outcome could certainly be.
Well, isn't that always the way it works?
Yeah.
Every time they try to mess with us in one way, it always bites them back in the ass, and it ends up doing the opposite. And this is the law of reverse polarity. When you reach critical mass, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to reach critical. We've already hit it. I'm sorry. If anybody believes that we still need to hit, we're there. We've hit critical mass. The law of reverse polarity is in effect, which means that anything that goes against the collective consciousness or the collective will, right? Anything that goes against it will automatically, no matter what the intent is, will support it.
And don't forget the prophecy of is it Malachi? This guy's the last pope.
Yeah.
So whatever he does, to me, it has to end up. The end result has to be the end of the Vatican, as we know it.
Well, I think being aware and knowing that we're looking for the phoenixing. Not that we're looking for it, but we're aware of the intent of it, and that enough is enough to make it not happen. Because the fact that we're aware of it, and the more people that become aware of it, if it doesn't resonate with you, it's just not a choice that people are going to make. And this is one of the things that I really must stress, for people to get this in themselves, to embody their own power. Because when you do that, you can't be controlled. You won't be. It automatically goes against your nature. It's built hardwired in you. If I try to tell you to do something, command you to do it, your first instinct is, who the fuck are you? It's instinctual, because it is our nature to be free. It is our nature to be autonomous, and it is our nature to be compassionate and loving. That's part of our nature.
Mm-hmm. Bob, do you want to try Grant again? Sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
I think he's ready to rock and roll.
The fact that vice president of a community bank knows that something is coming on September 1st tells me that September 1st may well be the launch date of the new financial system. Their version, yeah. I mean,
well, I know that,
version.
And this may be something that she may have been referring to. When Basel III Accords were instituted, it was effective January 1st, 2013. All banks had to come into compliance by September 1st. That's another September 1st date.
Just leave this phone line open for
We're up to Basel III because Basel 1 and 2 work so well.
That's a whole other story, but it may have been what she was referring to, that all banks had to be Basel III compliant as of September 1st. So September 1st plays a big role. For some reason, a lot of things coincide on that date, and I don't believe in coincidence.
You should call that vice president back and put her on the spot and say, hey, you mentioned something about a September 1st date coming up. What were you referring to? It'd be really funny to hear what kind of response that she came up with for that.
Indeed. Now we have Grant on the line.
Hello, Grant.
Yeah, hi Lisa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, great.
Hey, Grant.
Brian, how you doing?
Doing good, mate.
Yeah, that's the way.
Hi, Grant.
Yeah, I'm back.
He's back.
He's back.
Well, how are you?
Sorry, what was that?
I'm just saying, how are you? I mean, you've...
Geez, all good and getting better, I tell you. Yeah, I got home last night after 14 days vacation confinement. So it was, the very first thing I got home about 6:30 last night. So I wasn't craving it, but the 3 Tui's new stubbies went down really well. I'll tell you that.
Oh, you are an Australian, aren't you?
Must be. I'm proud of it.
So, can you give us an update on what's... there's a lot of echo on your line, though, making it a little bit difficult. But can you just give us an update on why and how you got out?
Well, why I got out is I appealed for leniency because everyone all the authorities and the administration at Grafton Jail said that I shouldn't be there for what I'd done. So I had a lot of help and it was great. So yeah, I got out yesterday. Yesterday was the 14th day on appeal. I basically had to really use everything I could because as much it was definitely an experience that I sort of don't want to do again. But it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. But I just miss my kids, and I know they miss me. And I had this small business, my house here, and everything, all the other stuff. So I did what I could to get out of there and try and remedy the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Grant, would it be fair to say that they couldn't get authority over you? They had no authority to hold you, except they decided to hold you until you gave them authority.
Definitely, because I could tell from the moment I was dragged in there, because I just went. This happened on Tuesday the 16th. Anyway, I came back to the house. I just went for a walk down the beach. I came back and there was 2 blue coats here, in the lounge room, just New South Wales police officer, or blue coats as we call them, and a sheriff who'd been here a couple of weeks prior. So they just said, "All right, mate, yeah, it's time to go." And they were pretty friendly. They let me close up everything. I was able to grab $40 that I had in my wallet, and all my the file I kept because this is all over an alleged credit card matter that I stopped paying 2 years ago when I discovered the discrepancies there, mainly your common garden variety deceptive acts and practices and fraud. So I was dragged in there. I went straight. They took me straight into the court, Ballina local court, and the judge was there, and there was about at least three or four other officials and people from the bank. There were no other alleged defendants in there. I was the only one, and I wouldn't answer any questions then. They forcibly put me into the witness box, and I didn't want to go in there because I understood that from there you cannot be seen or heard anyway. So as the judge came out, I didn't stand up. I didn't acknowledge any of his jurisdiction then. The moment he said, Mr. C, I said, and I've just sent this email to everyone now, I just immediately told him that I don't consent to be recognised as the legal identity name or any other name you find in your documents, and there is no legal, lawful, Rome or otherwise, that authorises you to recognise me as the legal identity name, blah, blah, blah. He then proceeded to talk over me. I immediately responded back, do you have duly verified documentation that demonstrates to me that you represent true government as constituted at the creation of this country? He said nothing again and just continued talking over me. I then blurted out, do you have the duly verified documentation of your standing, your law, your authority, and the original accommodation agreement with my wedding signature on it, saying that I belong to your corporation? Again, he didn't answer. He was just head down the whole time. And it was then, because I was running out of, I thought, okay, what next? And then I just said, do you have your oath of office, and is it here on record? That was the first time he responded, and he just said, don't you worry about that, bluntly. He then asked me to get out of the witness box and come down onto the floor in front of the bench and swear something. I don't recall what he said, but because I cut him off before he finished, and I said boldly and probably probably a little. I may have handled it from a very authoritarian, military sort of charge from the front way, and I think I did throw him off. And it was sort of apparent with some of the other officers in the court, just thinking, geez, what's going on? But I said, when he said, come down and swear, I said, I'm not swearing anything until you prove to me that you are true government. And it was right about there that I realised I crossed the line when I saw him pick up his hammer or whatever they call it, his mallet, and he just whacked it on the bench and said, I sentence you to 28 days for contempt of court. It was then that I yelled, would that be criminal contempt or civil contempt, Judge? He just ignored it again. So I asked him a second time, would that be criminal contempt or civil contempt? And by this stage, the sheriff and the police sergeant that were there were sort of manhandling me out the door as I finally yelled, I don't consent to any of this, and I waived the benefits. And it was in a way sort of comical because I knew... And I'd warned my kids out earlier that I had a feeling sooner or later this was going to happen. And I just had this inner feeling that it would be contempt. I just didn't think it would be 28 days. So that was different.
That's a little bit over the top, yes.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, yeah. Like I said, I went back in. They accepted my appeal, and I was told at the Grafton prison. I was actually told if I didn't write out an affidavit saying that I accept the judge's jurisdiction, and the court's jurisdiction, and any court orders, he would possibly put me away for another 2 or 3 months, and there was no way I couldn't afford to do that for my kids' benefits more than for anything else. So I wrote out the affidavit, spoke to a couple of legal people down there, the legal aid, and then finally I was once again strip searched before I left the prison, handcuffed, thrown in a black box called an escort van with 6 other real criminals, and they're all really good blokes, really, criminals. But so yeah, I was escorted another 2-hour trip or 1.5-hour trip back to Lismore Court, where the judge was waiting for me, or they made me wait all day, and he saw me last after a few other people had abused him. So I thought, oh shit, he's not in, because they were throwing him back in the cells each time they came back and telling me, oh, he's not in a good mood, So I fronted the judge, and I just used everything. At this stage, it was a sincere intent to apologise to him, so that I could just get the appeal accepted, and then I knew then he would re-adjourn it to the 8th of August and deal with the original matter that I was in there for, which was this alleged $2,500 credit card loan that they've blown out to now. It was originally a Commonwealth Bank credit card loan, but then they unsold it to a third-party interloper called Pioneer Credit Acquisition Services, who are in Perth, and now they've bumped on there a little bit extra. It's around about $8,000 now. So
a little bit extra.
Yeah, that's right. They it's a good business, that one, isn't it? So my intention now is to go back in there on the 8th, because I've more or less given my an affidavit word. I'll go back in there and I'll just deal with the banking matter. I intend to use the Heather's or the one people, the request for documentation of funding, which I had been using anyway, and I used that, I thought, successfully with I had another credit card loan with Citigroup, and I sent the same letter a month ago, and I haven't heard a peep from them ever since. It's the first time in 2 years, actually, with Citigroup, because they hounded me more than the Commonwealth Bank did. The Commonwealth Bank just went straight for the court process straight away. See, because they've been trying to get me into court for the last 6 months until, and I just kept sending back their contract offers, no contract, or conditional acceptance, and it just got down to the stage where they dragged me in, and so yeah.
Are you considered time served for the contempt?
Yes, as far as I know, they can't get me for contempt again unless. And see, that was the thing. I sort of understand from my previous Freeman experience that you've got criminal contempt, and for criminal contempt there has to be a victim or an injured party, and then we've got civil contempt. And my understanding for civil contempt there has to be a contract. And in no stage did I contract with the court, and as far as I'm concerned, I didn't have a lawful contract with the bank anyway. But we never actually got to the banking matter. It was still all in the game with the court, So I got contempt of court, which was a civil matter as far as they were concerned, and the 28 days, which was reduced by appeal to the 14 days as of yesterday. So I'm out now. The only way I can get done for contempt again is if I basically, as one of the welfare officers said at the jail, if I get into another pissing competition with the judge. So,
Brent, what did the other guys, what did the staff in the jail think of the circumstances?
Oh, well, generally, because there was 2 what they call welfare officers down there, which were, once I explained my situation, they were more than helpful. And they said, that they've got got other inmates in there that have been in there before a court, 7, 8, 9 times and have been let off, for serious offences. So, and one of the welfare officers, he was the one that said, you got into a pissing competition with the judge, and he didn't like it. He didn't like what you were asking him, and I felt that I had all the power. He just had the force, the guns, batons, and the.
Well, Grant, you mentioned that he kept looking down, and he wouldn't address any of your questions. That in itself says an awful lot.
Oh yeah.
But it sounds to me also like they've gone against all their own rules. If you do not consent and you waive the benefit of their contempt, they're not supposed to be able to move. They're not supposed to be able to make you leave that room.
That's why I left that bit till last, because I got that straight from Mary Elizabeth Croft, from reading her book. I can't remember, but everyone's familiar with this. Would have read her book, How I Clobbered Every Confiscatory Bureaucratic blah blah. So that was one of the what I thought at the time was one of my most powerful weapons and shields against them. I do not consent to this, and I waive the benefits. But it has worked for others. It just didn't work for me. They just steamrolled over it.
I think it was this particular judge, Grant, that really had a problem.
But that in itself tells you how corrupt the system is. It depends on the judge. It depends on the mood he's in. It depends on how many people have come up before him and pissed him off. How can an outcome vary to such a degree based on things like that? It's so corrupt. It's oh my God, I'm cringing to it.
Well, now you understand why it needed to be foreclosed.
Oh, I do understand, absolutely.
Yeah, well, see, this is a system revealing to us what it really is. There was never a justice system. There was only a system of force.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
that's all there ever was.
I was aware of that. Yeah, I knew I wasn't where I was being invited into or kidnapped into. It had nothing to do with justice and everything to do with commerce and contract. So I'm fully aware that we do not have a justice system. What we have is it's all about commerce. All commerce is contract. So it's
yeah, and there's no justice system. There's just a system of enforcement.
Exactly.
One of the things that's also been revealed through people here in Australia that have done investigations into this is the conflict of interest. Because judges have all of their superannuation and all of their investments tied up in some of these mortgage and credit card investment schemes that the banks run. So it's completely in their own personal best interest to ensure the bank wins each and every time.
Mm. Now, I noticed you said, Grant, there were representatives from the bank there. How were they behaving while this was going on?
Oh, they're all silent because it was pretty much just myself and the judge. It was from what I gathered. See, when I was escorted out, the police sergeant there was pretty friendly all the way through with me, And as he was walking behind me, as we got out the door, he says, "Well, I have never seen that before." And so I felt like I definitely caused a disturbance, but
you made an impact, that's for sure.
And you know what, those officers, and it sounds to me that you had a lot of sympathy from the people who were actually holding you there. They got to see firsthand the corruption. They got to see how this judge behaved, obviously out of character, because of the questions that you were asking. And
that's right.
Guarantee it's going to cause them to start asking some questions.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Yeah, I just see the thing as well, Bob. Like I've just posted a Facebook message today, and to all my email contacts. I actually felt when I went back in for the appeal yesterday, the judge said to the solicitor, there was just myself, the judge, the solicitor, and at least 4 sheriffs in there, and a couple of court clerks, and the judge actually said, he sounded like he was still in shock. He said, I have never had anyone speak to me and question my authority like that before. And I thought for then, oh shit, he's sending me back to finish the other 14 days. And it was just lucky that I had this really good solicitor, and she was cute as well. And so she helped me. Yeah. It was a nice.
Duly noted.
Yep. Hey, look, I'm a single guy, so I never miss these things. But I was surprised at the judges, how he said, I'd never been spoken to. I've never had anyone question my authority, So I really had to dig.
That's a really important point. That guy is in the system, and his belief set is that his authority is supreme in that room.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and he just got awoken. Okay, he just realised that there is a big, if you like, hole in the armour that he thought he had. And the only thing he's got to plug it with is a couple of big guys with handcuffs.
Exactly.
Which makes the system really appear, it shows the system for what it is. So he's had a real wake-up call too. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, well, yeah.
The thing is, there's just so many people out there that look at this situation and say, what are you doing? It's like a David against Goliath type of feat that you're trying to accomplish in there. But what people don't realize is that there's a lot of people now standing up against the system because they know that it's fraudulent and they know that it's corrupt. So what really happens is that when more people stand up for their rights, we are Goliath, they are David, and the tables turn completely. And awareness is the ingredient that leads to that point.
Yeah, exactly. See, when I got out yesterday, I had no money. I was in Lismore, which is about a 40-minute drive from where I live. So I didn't want to tell my dad, because my mum moved to the next world a few years ago. So I didn't want to concern my dad with it again, but it was the only one I could turn to. So I had to make my way up to his home because he lived in Lismore. Knocked on the door and said, "Oh, Dad, let me in. I've escaped." So I sort of shouldn't have done that. I freaked him out a little bit. But anyway, he gave me a lift home, and I said, "Dad, look, I don't want any lectures, okay? I did what I did," because he's always saying, "You're a fool. What are you doing? You can't win, blah blah blah." And I remember driving back. He drove me back home last night. I said, "Dad, look, I love you, but I swore an oath 25 years ago when I joined the army to defend my country against enemies, foreign and domestic. And we have a foreign power here that has taken over our country, right? And pretending to be true government." And I just remind him, for me, it's a difference between morality and obedience. Obedience is doing what you're told regardless of what is right, and morality is doing what is right regardless of what you're told. But some people just are still so.
I love that.
Yeah, plugged into the system. But anyway, I'm home and it's really a nice feeling. I've really got a different appreciation for everything now. So.
Yeah, bravo.
And you know what, Grant? And this was true for me. All of these actions that are meant to inspire fear in people, to spark, fear in the hearts of people that this is what will happen, is having the opposite effect. At least on me it is. It's causing outrage and it's inspiring more action.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is what I see happening to people. They're no longer becoming afraid, because even that point where he refused to answer your questions, right? That is powerful. That's powerful. When people see judges squirm like that, and they wonder why isn't he answering his question? You know, why is he acting this way? What it reminds me of, I don't know if anybody's ever seen the movie The Beach, but at the end of the movie, the people, or what had started out as a good idea, ended up becoming very corrupt, and this whole little community that they had built, and in the end, the one guy, the drug dealer who was hosting them, basically called the leader of the community's hand and forced her to show who she really was. She was willing to kill, her own friends. And when she took that action, even though the gun was empty, she pulled the trigger. When she took that action, it immediately removed any authority that she had. Everybody saw her for who she was, and nobody would follow her anymore. They all just left. And no matter how much she pleaded, because they saw her for who she really was. And this is what is really opening the eyes of so many people. Because a lot of people don't want to believe that their governments are corrupt. They don't want to believe that their police are corrupt. That they don't want to believe that their banking system is corrupt. They want to believe that, nobody wants to be taken for a fool. Nobody. And to accept that, when you see it for yourself, you can't deny it. You can't, and it'll itch in the back of your head, and it will open your eyes to what's really going on. And I'm so glad that you came on and told your story, because regardless of the outcome, it has done tremendous things to awaken the world, because the whole world is watching. There's no way that they can hide anymore.
Yeah. And thank you, Bob. And I really want to thank everybody, all the one people, and for all the support and the calls, especially to my kids, and for all the concern. Thank you very much.
The thanks goes to you, my man. Thank you for standing in your truth and being a warrior and not backing down for anybody. So hats off to you, my friend.
Flower like a flower asks, what meaning do you place on being in jail? Look what Gandhi did in jail.
Yeah.
Enough said.
Nelson Mandela.
Yep.
Well, guys, we're down to 8 minutes left of the show. So, Grant, thank you for your doing and your being, and allowing us to actually support you. Thank you for the update. Keep us posted.
Yep.
If you have to do this all over again, would you?
I had I just wrote that question. I wrote that in my the email, the Facebook message I just posted out, and for me the bottom line was this, and I'll just read it to you, because this was really the lesson for me. So I just had here, yesterday, Monday, the 29th of July, about 4 p.m., I apologise with sincere and loving intent to my partner in contrast, the judge, and accepted his jurisdiction and orders to appear again on the 8th of August for the original civil matter, which was to discuss the financial, or what was called the examination order, for an alleged credit card debt I haven't paid, blah, blah, blah. Would I follow this plan of action again? Nope. Although I know it has worked for many others, it didn't work for me, but I felt this was an experience, a path and a part of my evolution that I had to complete, because around about the 10th night, I was laying on my cell bunk, I was looking up at the ceiling. I asked myself, there are no accidents, no errors, no mistakes, no coincidences happening here. So what is the lesson here, Grant? That was the question I asked myself, and it hit me in the face like a shit bat. For the entire, that's one of my favourite sayings. For the entire 14 days, I had young guys who were actually boys, just a few years older than my first son, Curran, and a few of the grown men who sort of honoured me or honoured my essence by allowing me to share a small part of their sad and unfortunate life experience, which I observed came from never being loved or cared for by a mother or father, because most of them were in prison themselves. And so it was like it hit me almost instantly, why I was there. I was lying there, I felt this presence and a feeling of overwhelming empathy, unconditional love, and I felt this patience just flow through my embodiment, and I figured out straight away, this is why I'm here. This was my little lesson, my experience. And the other big thing was, don't get into a pissing competition with a judge, because they'll cheat.
Well, that's our greatest problem, is that they break their own rules.
Yeah.
Which is a sign of the system in going into failure mode. And the more people that actually do this, the quicker the system will fail. And I'm not saying that you should get into a pissing competition with a judge. You just need to stand up and voice your rejection of the system.
Exactly. I sort of didn't finish off there. What I was saying, they'll cheat every time. They'll use the force, which is their guns, batons, and threat of prison, until they realise the truth, that the landscape or the game has changed. And they're all foreclosed entities. They have no power or alleged authority or hierarchy. It's us, the one people, that have the power. So we always have.
Yeah.
So once again, thank you so very much to everybody for your support.
Well, you're more than welcome, and thank you for everything you're doing, and the light that you're shining on the situation. Wonderful.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Okay, guys, we've only got a few minutes left. We've only had one or two little trolls in the chat room, and you guys, as usual, handled them beautifully. Tomorrow, the Collective Imagination. We do have a guest on tomorrow. We have Kelly Lashar, so looking forward to seeing what she has to say. And thank you to Grant, thank you to Kiri, thank you to Jenny, and everybody that's over in New Zealand supporting Kiri, and around the world in all of the myriad ways in which you've shown your support. And thank you to Bob for that wonderful, wonderful meditation, and for just being you and being here. Thank you.
Anytime, Lisa.
Thank you to Chris.
Most welcome. And I have one really minor announcement. Well, not minor. I have an announcement. There's an updated itinerary for the Road to Sirocco meeting, the Opal meeting in New South Wales next month. It will be on the Nova Earth News section of the IUD website a bit later today.
Oh, that reminds me. Hey, Bob, can you pull in Matt King? I totally forgot. I spaced it until right now. He's waiting to make his quick announcement. But can we do that for just the last couple of minutes here?
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, I'll say my goodbyes now, everyone. We'll leave you with Matt King and his announcement, and see you tomorrow for the Collective Imagination.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Hey there, guys. Can you hear me?
Hey, yeah. Matt. Sorry, I spaced it until the last. You got 90 seconds. If we need to, we'll bring you on again on my show on Wednesday. But go for it, man. Floor is yours.
Yeah, no problem. I can be really brief. Thanks so much for having me on here. I'm really honored and excited. I just wanted to bring up something where you guys, Brian, you had shared, and Lisa had shared an article on the DNA wave genetics.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a group out here in Detroit. We're called the Flower of Life Center, and we're actually bringing in one of the Russian researchers. His name is Peter Garyaev. We're bringing him in from from Russia. It'll be his first time in the U.S., and he's going to be at our expo called the Awake and Empowered Expo, and that's in Detroit, this October. Am I echoing? I hear an echo. Do you guys get my echo or no?
You're good. It's probably just on your end. What's the website so people can go and check it out?
So you can go to www.awakeandempoweredexpo.com, and from there you can connect to our Facebook page, our Twitter account, our YouTube account, etc. We're putting up lots of interviews of all the presenters that we're having. In fact, we have Michael Tellinger, Kiri Cassidy, many others. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. And thank you so much for everything that you guys are doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Bye everybody.
All right. Love you guys.